Okay, we are recording. Let me just shift screen. Perfect. So good afternoon again to everyone, including those who just joined. The topic is hybrid cloud security, and we have quite a bit of interesting stuff in store for you. Before we get started, though, a little bit of housekeeping. The session is being recorded so that it can be handed over to you, either to go through the content again, or if you miss any or all of it, you can watch it at your own convenience. Please ensure you're all muted, unless, of course, you like to speak or ask a question, because, you know, nobody likes background noises, and we all heard of it in one way, shape, or form. And of course, we encourage you to ask questions, to be, curious about the stuff we discuss. You can either ask questions by raising your hand and waiting to be called in and unmuting yourself, or you could just use the chat facility within Teams, and we'll try our best to have a look. Obviously, we want to keep the flow and get everything delivered, but we do endeavour to answer all the questions. The agenda for this session, it's only 45 minutes, and 40 if you count, we start a bit late. We're going to talk about hybrid cloud facts, the information that you may or may not already know, just to make sure that we're all on a level playing field. We're going to go through the native controls available to you, and we're going to discuss some of the challenges associated with those native controls, and eventually it'll all lead into what I want to talk to you, which is a different approach. So without further ado, what's hybrid cloud? Again, apologize if I'm talking and stating the obvious, but I just don't like to make assumptions. Hybrid cloud is a computing environment combining private cloud and public cloud together. And it's not just that, it's the combination has to be such that data and applications can be shared, can circulate between public cloud and private cloud in order to draw the most advantages from those two environments. There are many reasons why organizations choose to subscribe to hybrid cloud. One of them is scalability, because obviously one thing that's good about public cloud, it can scale up or down and handle excess demand. But also flexibility, because, moving data and workloads across them allows you to, facilitate the utilization of those environments, makes you more flexible, makes you able to enable your development, enable your infrastructure fully. And last but not least, of course, better redundancy, because by programming cloud apps or workload in the public cloud to take over when the ones in the private cloud have issues, fail, or crash, makes you effectively redundant without having to get things like a warm site, a hot site, a spare data center, and stuff like that. It's much easier, much better. Effectively, it brings the best of both worlds. So from a graphical representation point of view, organizations have all started from a head office, and some have grown to a level that allow them expansion into one or more, say, side offices. And then there was a clear demarcation in time where the data center came about. People just took away the infrastructure from their office location and put it into a more appropriate environment. And if you will, the last evolutionary step was the implementation of public cloud. And in this particular example today, Microsoft Azure. So people learned what the public cloud was, learned how to use it. And for those of you that use them all or both at the same time, effectively, this is what we call a hybrid cloud. This is the very definition of a hybrid cloud. However, I couldn't possibly claim this overview to be relevant if I weren't to discuss fairly recent developments, and particularly developments started April last year. A huge drive into, trying to accommodate a dramatic change in the shape of organizations' network by having the majority, if not the total workforce, working remotely from home. And what that's has caused, apart from many things which I'm sure you're all aware of, is that more and more office locations have been taken out of the equation for infrastructure. They become more places where people gather up, for places where to have meetings, but the infrastructure somehow has tend to concentrate in the data center and or in the cloud. Effectively, if you will, in a certain way, changing the shape of the hybrid cloud in a certain. So is cloud adoption still popular? Are we talking about stuff that doesn't need to be discussed, I wonder? So to answer this question, I consulted one of the most recent surveys conducted between October 2020 and November 2020, involving 750 cloud decision makers worldwide. And while I'm sure what you're about to see will not surprise anyone, it's interesting to put numbers and figures to the reality that we all know, that we're all aware about. Not only organizations are still spending on public cloud, that spend has increased massively as a result of the worldwide global pandemic. Is it all about public cloud, or is it private cloud more relevant, or is it hybrid where, you know, the cool kids hang about? And this slide, again, from the same survey, gives you a very clear picture. Only 2% of businesses are sticking to the traditional way of networking. About a fifth of them are fully sold and fully subscribed to purely public cloud, whereas the vast majority arguably are implementing hybrid cloud, quite simply because all these 78% of organizations aren't yet prepared to get rid of their investments in the private cloud present, but want to explore public cloud as it is. And arguably, perhaps the most interesting stats in the whole set is around the challenges. So these people have been asked, what do you see as being the challenges with the implementation of cloud? And I'm sure you guys will recognize some of the items in this slide. The lines are broken down in blue for enterprises and gray for small businesses. And I'm really pleased to say, finally, security got the place it deserved, hence the title of this presentation. Security is really important. Things like the shared responsibility model, the zero trust model have been recognized, and also the awareness that public cloud environments are slightly different from traditional networking as we know it, but that's not to say they don't deserve good, if not even better security. And that's why we're talking about hybrid cloud security today. So what's already there available for you in terms of native controls? Of course, this is a Microsoft Cloud Expo day, guys, and therefore we will need to focus our conversation around Azure. So what do you have available in Azure for securing your cloud environments? Of course, you have NSGs, which are the access control lists of the public cloud. You have VNets, which are, private networks, the equivalent of private networks in Azure. And for those of you who need to extend those private networks across different regions, that's what VNet peering is there. Then you have a VPN gateway, pretty self-explanatory, a web application firewall, and a firewall as it stands. So it seems like they check all the boxes, but is it really all what it looks? So what I did for you guys, I did a bit of a critical analysis, and I selected one of those components, perhaps the one that I deem more relevant to this overview, and it's the Azure Firewall. The Azure Firewall exists in two versions, standard and premium, and I thought I'd do some work on your behalf to see what the goods and the bads about these products are. So the Firewall Standard Pros, it's a cloud firewall, so it's highly scalable, highly available, and it brings all the goodness of public cloud. The not so good aspects of it is that it's basic. It's not a next generation firewall, and even some slightly advanced features are in preview. Now, those of you who know what preview means in the Microsoft world, is effectively not ready yet. I don't want to be mean and say beta, but that's effectively what it is. And another important thing is price per deployment hour per gigabyte of data processed. So you pay for as long as that component is up, but also for however much traffic you feed into it, which kind of might bring some challenges in terms of cost predictability. And of course, the major downside is there is no private cloud version of it. If you look into the premium firewall, the slightly newer, more next generation product solution from Azure, again, the goodness is next gen. So it's got for some advanced security features like TLS inspection, intrusion detection and prevention, URL filtering. The downside, guys, is the whole solution is in preview. Okay, it's not generally available, and you're thinking, oh, but you might get it to try it for free. You get a discounted price, but you still pay per deployment hour and per gigabyte for a product for which you effectively become a test pilot. And again, there is no Azure Firewall outside of Azure. So what's the scenario? What's the reality? Well, the reality is that I'll be excused to assume that you guys have some office spaces where you have a firewall. And if you do have branches, I do hope you have some form of perimeter security in the branches. But the most important really thing is there's a firewall in the data center. Your data center might or might not be connected to your Azure cloud by way of an express route, by way of a VPN connection, or both. Because, you know, if you know express route, you know it's not encrypted. And in Azure, you might subscribe to the Azure Web Application Firewall and with the Azure Firewall. And this is pretty much what the security landscape in hybrid cloud looks like with, say, native controls. Let's take a look now at some of the challenges associated with having this model of security for hybrid cloud. And the first challenge, of course, is, you know, the trouble with public cloud security is very difficult to extend. It does not apply to anything else that isn't public cloud, which means you have to apply something else into the public cloud. And also, as you've seen, some of the components, and there's more than what I just showed you, are still under construction. There's no two ways about it. Knowing Microsoft tomorrow will all wake up and it's already generally available, but it still isn't Mark 1. It's not something the season has been out for quite a while. And also, the end result is multiple panes of glass. You have the Azure security on one side, the private cloud security on another side, loads of operational efforts, and effectively different security strategies which you have to manually match and make consistent. So in effect, a good appreciation of whether this is sort of acceptable or not might be represented by this figure here. From the point of view of the administrator, there's quite a bit of work to do because of the differences. So I say, time to ask some questions. What questions should we ask? Well, I'm sure some of you at least are debating, do I even need a firewall in the public cloud? And trust me when I say answering this question isn't difficult. Do you have valuable assets? Lots of you say, I only have testing, I only do development in the cloud, but then equally you're paying for it. Your organization is invested in the cloud, so very quickly, if not already, there'll be production assets. And the other question that you need to ask is there traffic allowed? If you lock yourself out or lock yourself into the public cloud and everything comes in and out of the data center, then perhaps justifying a firewall might be difficult. But knowing and understanding how easy it is to give a public interface address to an asset and associated to the right or wrong NSG means perhaps a firewall is not such a bad idea after all, or a perimeter solution. The other question is there a solution out there that fits both environments, or is what I've seen before just the only option? Is there something that fits public cloud, private cloud, and any other environment that, of course, I can bring into an element of convenience? And perhaps the most important question is it convenient to stick to native controls for fear of avoiding the explosion of multiple point solutions, as I'm sure you're all aware? Or is it perhaps convenient to find a way in between to actually obtain that element of consolidation and achieve that time saving and operational reduction that gives you that level of flexibility and optimization? And that's the question I encourage you all to ask. So in order to give you more food for thought to answer the question, I thought let's have a look at a different approach. Hybrid security should be fit for hybrid cloud. Hybrid security should not be public cloud security and private cloud security. It should be hybrid. Be fit for any cloud environment, apply to data center, to on-prem, to public cloud, and understand these environments. The environments are not the same, they're different, okay? Equally, it needs to be an enabler for you to have one single security policy and being able to push it everywhere. Okay, the management layer doesn't care whether a security gateway is in the cloud, in the data center. It just pushes the information, the strategy. Each individual component, they understand, I work in Azure, I apply to the sake of Azure. I work in the data center, I deal with VLANs, I deal with interfaces, and so on and so forth. And effectively, you eliminate gaps and discrepancies in your security. And obviously, the whole purpose is having unified management and monitoring. I'm really resisting for using marketing jargon here, but it is possible. The technology allows for you to have administration and configuration of multiple environments in the same view, and also visibility, knowing what happens in your hybrid cloud from a holistic point of view. So effectively, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm suggesting here is that you turn this into this, to leverage the technologies available, and be smart about it. And in order to do so, I think there's no better way than introduce my colleague Matthew Mannings, who's the Checkpoint Software Technology SE aligned to myself, and who would like to take you on a bit of a journey to explore how true what I just said to you all is. So allow me to just give Matthew Mannings access. Manning, you should now have control.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Great stuff. Giuseppe, would you mind just muting yourself quickly?
Of course, sure thing.
Oh, I can mute. Hi everybody, so my name is Matthew Manning. Everybody knows me as Manning. I am, as Giuseppe has announced, I am an SE at Checkpoint. We believe we have a truly hybrid security solution. We believe we have a technology that is primed and ready to go for people no matter what stage you are at the moment. I'm going to step you through today some of our existing technologies, some of our new technology, and where we can place in your data center and in your public or private cloud environment. Okay, let's just see if I can use these slides remotely. Is this going to work for me? There we go. So a bit like Giuseppe, we have this idea of, is remote working going to stay around where we are at the moment? Now, this is a really big question we're being asked by our customers at the moment, because they're so used to, in the last 12 months, working remotely. It was such a rapid change for the world last year, and we were forced to help our customers figure out that puzzle. Over the 12 months, lots of challenges have faced people around infrastructure, and we know that where people are really makes a massive difference to the type of infrastructure that you need to consume. If people are at home, you're going to have lots of SaaS cloud-based services. If people return to the office, there are potentially going to be a greater need for on-premise solutions, more than there ever have been before. So very briefly, a bit like Giuseppe did, we had a look at some of the sort of users' ideas of what they want at the moment. There seems to be about a 50-50 split with what employers are doing at the moment. But it does seem that most employers are looking for there to be some form of remote working continuing ongoing. Now, what I've been hearing in different areas is that this tends to be around 2 days from home and 3 days in the office. From a user's perspective, it does appear that users are wanting to have some form of flexible working, to have some ability to work from home from time to time. And again, that 2-3 day split seems to be suiting a lot of people. So there's definitely a drive from employers to give their users that opportunity. And there's definitely, employees want that opportunity to work from their homes from some time. So this may mean that the size of the offices that people are buying or renting may change. Also, the employees may, particularly the best people in the market, may have the power to say that I want to work from home, and they may have the ability to control. If you want the best people, you've got to give them what they want. And if they want flexible working locations, that may be something you have to adhere to. Also, from a business perspective, you can really reduce the bottom line if you can shrink the kind of facilities that you're utilizing, particularly in big cities, because as we can see here, it would be very easy for cost. Even a small business would say just 100 people to have hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of on-site costs. So there are lots of factors that can pull people in and out of buildings, and with buildings we potentially place infrastructure. So I am a real strong believer in where you place your people really depends on where you place your infrastructure. Okay, so what we're seeing from our customers across the board is that the choices they're making inside their data center are changing massively. We're seeing people are migrating lots of legacy equipment from the data center into either a public or a private cloud environment. Azure does seem to be a very popular choice. the benefits of micro-segmentation of different services, the benefits of automation, and the kind of code-based driven infrastructure that people are using is really popular for customers as well. Co-locations are seeming to be slightly less popular, with people bringing things back into their offices, into comms room again. The reliability of local internet connections is very good. So we're seeing a real change. Some people are moving out of data centers. Some people are putting more infrastructure in. One of the last things we've seen was at the beginning of the year, people moving lots of their infrastructure out of their colos or their data centers into the cloud, and then finding that some of that maybe hasn't quite worked for them. Maybe there's been some costs they didn't quite anticipate, and actually they're wanting more static costs. So things are being brought back in. So the data center is changing. In some areas it's growing, and in some areas it really is shrinking. So the question people are asking, is it time for them to move their technologies in or out of a cloud environment? And this is something that we feel like we can help with. So as you can see on this diagram, we have on the left-hand side lots of little checkpoint logos. We have the one here, bottom left-hand corner next to the house, which looks a bit like a flower, which we call our Harmony technology. That is technology that the users will see. It's their antivirus, it's their anti-malware, anti-ransomware technology, and also their connectivity VPN software to bring them back into their head office. We also see what we call here our Quantum logo and our cloud logos. These are for security firewalls that we can install either on public or private cloud environments, and also in physical tin as well. So what we are seeing already this year, and we expect to see a lot more of, is businesses choosing to hire or rent or buy smaller office facilities where they will need on-premise environments. And for those, we have what we call our Checkpoint Quantum Spark appliances. And these are the small on-premise devices. I say small, but some of the Spark appliances can cope with up to 2 gigabits per second of full threat prevention throughput. That's all of our security features turned on and enabled and running. So that's 2 gigabits per second of throughput. That's really high on some of these smaller boxes. The bulk of our customers are still choosing to buy what we call our quantum security gateways. These are our highly modular, high-spec appliances, and we're seeing a lot of customers refreshing those boxes, getting good new technology, and maybe buying slightly bigger or slightly smaller, depending on what their needs are looking at this year. I'm not going to talk about those for much more today because they're people know what appliance firewalls and on-premise firewalls look like. Just to let you know, there are options available. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit later about our Quantum Maestro technology. This is our scalable, what we call our hyperscale technology. It's our ability to deploy a solution that is capable of growing as your needs grow. And we feel it mimics a lot of the benefits that you can get from a public cloud environment, but on-premise in hardware, giving you the best of both worlds. And we'll break that down in a little bit more in a moment. So obviously we've shown you there we have lots of different hardware options, and we also support the deployment of one of our firewalls inside of Microsoft Azure. Now what you can see here is we have a centralized or a unified management platform. I call this the big brain of where everything lives. It's where all of your firewall and configuration policies live. At the same time, it's where all of your logging information will reside. So logging and reporting all can go to a centralized place. So it doesn't matter if on-premise in your headquarters you are running a on-premise hardware, just a couple of boxes running as a traditional on-premise appliance-based cluster. If you're using a private cloud software-based solution, something like VMware NSX or Cisco ASI, or Azure as a public cloud infrastructure as a service gateway, along with the other platforms. But obviously you guys are looking at Azure at the moment. We can manage all of these different platforms from the same centralized unified management environment. And we'll go into this in a little bit more detail. So the two technologies which we think overlap really nicely are our CloudGuard Network technology. CloudGuard Network is our software-based infrastructure as a service firewall that can run as a software either in the public cloud or in the private cloud environment. And then we have the Quantum Maestro, which is this hyperscale, scalable on-premise platform. And both of them provide you the scalability, flexibility, and redundancy of a public cloud environment, despite the fact that obviously Maestro is a hardware solution. So telling you a little bit more about Maestro, this is really key to customers at the moment. We've seen really big uptake in finance and in academic worlds where the scale and growth of on-premise data center requirements for inbound and data processing traffic or user-based outbound traffic is unpredictable at the moment. They're not sure what they're going to need. Now, in that previous slide, I showed you a big stack of firewalls. Now, this device can support up to 52 gateways in an individual cluster, but you don't have to go that big. You can start as small as 2. What we've done is take tailco grade technology, the big old chassis servers that used to have to come in a forklift, and we've removed that chassis and we've replaced it with a single switch, a very intelligent switch, which we call our Maestro orchestrator. This controls the flow of traffic, the load sharing capabilities of users' traffic going through this clustered environment, and also supports the addition of additional gateways. So the way that a system administrator would add capacity to this system would just be to acquire some more gateways. They would unbox it, rack it, cable it all up, and then turn it on. Once they've added these additional devices to the cluster, the Maestro orchestrator will send down to it a copy of the operating system, the firewall's configuration, so that's policy and all the enforcement that it will perform, and then it will be integrated into this cluster, adding that additional N+1 capacity as it goes. And the time it takes from powering on to that system being fully integrated and actually processing connections from your environment is 6 minutes per device. That's how quick we can do that in. So as you can see, it's a very fast, very rapid way of scaling out your on-premise environment. Now, this doesn't have to be done quickly. For a lot of our customers, it tends to happen 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line. They will add capacity as we go. Our future options are going to allow you to have a mixture of different appliances. So you can add the new appliances at refresh time when things start to get a bit old, and you can take out all the old hardware. Now, you don't have to run this as one big super mega cluster. You can actually split the environment into separate environments as well. So you could have 2 and 2, or you could have 10 and 20, or 10, 10, 10, 10, you know, lots of different ways. And you can split them into all of these different security groups as you need. And all of this is fully programmable through our APIs. So the splitting of the hardware, although it looks like they're physically being separated, in the real world, none of the cabling would change. From a software level, you would just ask one of the gateways to start participating in a different group. So it's software driven if you wish, GUI based driven if you like that, but it can be driven by code if you are more mature in that area, which a lot of cloud providers are. Now, looking at what you may choose if you're looking at an Azure point of view, we have our CloudGuard network security technology, which, as you can see here, supports a wide range of different cloud-based technologies, both public and private. We're very mature in this environment. We have been running this for quite a long time. We are a software-based company, and we've been able to lift up our software stack and very easily migrate these into these different environments with not a lot of need to change things. We have templates and blueprints already written for each of these different environments, particularly Microsoft Azure. So there's not a lot of configuration that needs to be done because the templates will be ready to go for you. Again, all fully programmable and configurable through the APIs that we have as well. Okay. So the big question is, why would you use us over, say, the native tools that come with the public cloud environment? Well, obviously, Giuseppe's made a really good point that if you wanted to buy some on-premise tin, you're not going to have an option from Microsoft for their Azure firewall on an on-premise environment. But beyond that, I feel that we have the world's leading firewall technology. We are a security-focused company. We don't distract ourselves with other technologies. We don't sell IT administration tools. We don't sell data storage or servers. We focus purely on security. So no matter where, as IT administrators, people choose to deploy their infrastructure, whether or not that's laptops, mobile phones, servers, Kubernetes containers, all these, modern style computing and data storage solutions as well, we have been able to just place our software stack into those environments. And one of the first things we did was the CloudGuard network security. So an infrastructure as a service firewall. Now, most of the traditional native firewall tools will do simple functions. So, for example, it will be firewall, IPS application control. We consider this to be relatively, standard old technology that we have very, very mature. We step further into that and we have threat emulation, threat extraction, and zero-day protection, amongst other security features. This is sandboxing and virtualization to ensure that we can protect you against not just the known signature-based threats that are out there, but also unknown threats as well. So if you're being specifically targeted as an organization, we have the ability to detect those brand new pieces of malware, how they're going to affect your environment, and automatically block them if they appear to be malicious from our side. And we have lots of evidence to show the strength and the quality of our product in that area. So we feel this is a real pedigree as to why you would want to pick and go with a technology. So obviously I keep mentioning that we have a hybrid solution. This is a very, very small snippet of one of our firewall policies. What is interesting to note in here is that we have the 6 different rules. From this one policy, we have tried really hard to ensure that it doesn't matter what aspect of your security policy you're configuring, it can fit into one centralized policy. You're not having to go to lots of different areas to configure your security policy. We like that you can do everything in one place. The most important thing to direct your eyes down to is this bottom left-hand corner on the install on column. This is where we say you can install firewall on, and that could be on an Azure IaaS gateway or on a VMware firewall that we've installed, or an appliance that you have on premise. We have the ability to integrate this so closely that you can actually have a single rule that could apply, if applicable, to an Azure gateway and an on-premise gateway. And when you push those changes to those systems, both on-premise hardware and cloud-based firewalls could be updated with the same rules. And it is, from this point of view, there is nothing that would really give you an indication that you are looking at a specific hardware or a specific public cloud environment, because our software is so homogeneous across the board that the actual location of the firewall's placement in the infrastructure is almost invisible to the user because it's so seamless and integrated. So that's really where we are at the moment. One last thing we have is that we have the ability to integrate and connect our firewall policies to the Azure API, so we can pull in assets from the Azure environment. We can perform rules based on things like source and destination that could be based on tags that you have created inside the Azure environment. And we can drag those objects into this policy and make things automatically run based on tags that you have in your environment. So that's hopefully giving you a quick overview of some of the technologies that we have. And I think we've got about 5 minutes left now for questions, if anyone is feeling brave or has any thoughts about what we've got on. Anyone at all?
Mannings, if you could move to the next slide.
Oh, is there one more?
No, it's just a concluding slide. So I can then stop the recording. Right. And so I don't have to remember to do so, and then people might feel a bit more